Breaking news, the government of Canada just made a massive new announcement. People cannot come to Canada as visitors and switch to worker status. In this video, we are going to explore the details of this announcement. Before we get started, my name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a licensed Canadian immigration consultant. Reach out to me for any paid immigration services that you need. Now let's dive into the details of this announcement. So the government has announced that starting immediately, people who come here on visitor status cannot change their status from visitor to worker while they are still inside Canada. So a person who wants to become a worker will have to leave Canada even if they have a job offer, apply for a work permit from their home country, and then arrive in Canada as a worker. This policy is effective immediately, which means you cannot file a work permit today any longer to change your status from a tourist to a worker. Any application that was filed before today will still be processed and you could still become a worker. This is the latest announcement of the government in its attempts to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada and to curb all the fraud that's going on around LMIAs and work permits. So let's try to understand the background of this policy. Why was this policy created in the first place? So this policy was introduced around August 2020. Around the pandemic time, there were a lot of changes in the labor market. A lot of people who came to Canada as visitors or students, they were not able to leave the country because of the lockdowns and travel restrictions. So as a friendly gesture, the government said, okay, if you're not able to go back to your home country and you're not able to survive here, then we will allow you to work for a temporary period of time. So you will be able to convert from visitor to worker and support yourself while you're stuck in this country. A lot of people who are workers or students, they lost their jobs during the pandemic. So instead of letting them go, the government said, okay, if you were a worker, you lost your job, so you became a visitor, you changed to a visitor status. Now you want to go back to being a worker, then we will allow you to apply for a work permit within Canada, and you can become a worker again, because there was a shortage of labor. So these steps were helpful in really helping some of those shortages. But now the labor market is not so tight anymore. In fact, Canadians are facing a lot of unemployment and rising healthcare and housing costs. So the labor market and the conditions have changed. This policy was introduced to help a small set of people during a specific period of time. That those conditions don't exist anymore. In fact, this policy has become a backdoor or a loophole for a lot of unethical and fraudulent activities. So what started happening was agents and some consultants and lawyers in Canada, they started advising their clients that, hey, because of this policy, you can come to Canada as a tourist. Tell the officer that you're coming just to visit your friends, family, or just for tourism. And once you're here, you can find a job, have an employer sponsor an LMIA, and then you can remain here as a worker and then become a PR. So this became a kind of a loophole, and a lot of fraud was going on because of this policy. So people would come here with cash, they would hook up with employers or agents, pay them a lot of money, and then acquire an LMIA and remain here. So the Canadian public has become very angry about this policy, and the government has come under a lot of pressure because of politics, because of elections, because of the economy. So they have finally decided that this policy needs to end. Now, why has this policy been ended immediately? Why did they not give a notice period like, hey, after 30 days or after 60 days? I think it has been ended immediately intentionally so that people don't get a chance to buy or sell LMIs very quickly and file for work permits before the policy expires. So they intended to catch the people unawares or without giving them much of a chance to react to this policy. 90% of the LMIAs and job offers that were offered to visitors or tourists were usually bought and sold, so they were fraudulent anyways. And this was never meant to be a permanent policy, it was a temporary policy. So it was set to expire in February, but February of 2025, but they've ended it 6 months in advance. because of all the tightening that's going on. So this is the latest strategy of the government to tighten the temporary residents. So if you are in Canada from as a visitor, from today onwards, you cannot file a work permit from within Canada. You have to leave Canada and come back with a work permit. This applies not just to tourists or visitors, but also people who are in Canada who had a temporary status like a worker or student who became visitors and are currently visitors. So even those people will have to unfortunately leave the country. Flag polling may be an option, but it's a very risky option. So, for example, if you're in the country as a visitor, and your application was already in process and an approval comes in, then you can take that approval, go to the port of entry or a border and get your work permit stamped there instead of having to leave the country altogether. But the chances of getting a denial at the port of entry are very, very high. So I would not advise that as a strategy right now. So that's the announcement. More details will be coming in over the coming days, and as we get the details, we'll post it on this channel. So stay subscribed. Once again, my name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a licensed RCIC. Contact me for any immigration applications or immigration related paid inquiries. Thank you.